So with that, again, my name's Ken Eck. I'm the Du Bois County Extension Educator. I've been asked today to kind of serve as the moderator for a group of panelists working with the LSI, or the Land Stewardship Initiative project at the Vincennes University Jasper campus. I'd like to thank you again for joining us for the second of our 4 virtual Lunch and Learn sessions brought to you again by the LSI project. If you missed last week's session on soil health assessments with the state soil health specialist Stephanie McLean and the SWCD project technician Melissa Rousseau, you can find it recorded on the Du Bois County SWCD YouTube channel. This week, however, we're going to be talking to members again of the LSI Ag Advisory Committee, which is comprised of Alan Smock, Rick Applegate, Dwayne Hof, Brock Reisner, and Jason Leakin. We'll be hearing about their personal journey into soil health and changes they witnessed by working with the fields around VUJC. As with all the sessions, again, if you have any questions or comments during the presentation, please type them into the chat box, which is located towards the bottom in the middle of your screen. We may answer them during the presentation, or we'll just hold them till the end, depending on how things go, and have our panelists answer them during our question and answer session. So with that, let's go to our questions for our panelists. What we're going to try to do today is kind of go in alphabetical order. It's hard on these screens to kind of see who's where, and each screen, depending on who you are, is going to look different, unlike having a table of panelists where you just go down the list. So we're going to start off by asking some simple questions about our panelists today. The first 2 being, we'd like for them to kind of tell us briefly about their business or farm operation and how they work maybe with other farmers. With that, we'll just kind of go alphabetical and start with you, Rick, and tell us more about your business, how you work with farmers, and things like that.
Sure, thanks, Kenny. Rick Applegate with Precision Farming Solutions. We specialize in helping farmers with technology. Anything from adding auto steer on tractors, yield monitors on combines, all the technology now you can get on planters, any kind of automation in the row crop area we've probably dealt with and do on a daily basis. So I thought with our skill set and being history of collecting data, analyzing data, I thought it was a good way for us to become a part of the Ag Committee and help out to take the data from the LSI and help everyone present it in a way that makes sense and that farmers can understand.
Kind of help us digest the elephant as we find things out there in the field, then, in other words.
Yep.
Okay. Let's go on the list here. Dwayne, you're next. Tell us who operates.
Yeah, I'm Dwayne Hof. I've been farming for 36 years, northwestern area of Jasper, Ireland, even down into Pike County some. We have corn, soybeans, and wheat in our operation, a few beef cows. We've got multiple wash gobs, waterways, and structures throughout the farm. I got a passion for soil conservation and natural resource conservation. And I'm hoping to be a contributor on this committee that I serve on from a farmer perspective, adding views that are useful that a farmer would think about that maybe the retailers and government agencies do not. So that's kind of why I jumped onto this, and I really enjoy working with these folks.
Okay. Next, we'll go with Jason Leakin with Superior Ag.
Yes, so Jason Leakin with Superior Ag. I'm our Precision Ag Manager. So most of us think of Superior Ag as a crop input supplier where you would get your fertilizer, chemical, and seed. But we're also more than that. So we provide soil sampling services, tissue sampling services, a lot of the different things that fall underneath the Precision Ag realm. And then also, we're kind of an information company also. We help growers come up with ideas, new innovative ways of thinking to help them not only improve their yield, but also improve their overall soil health and soil conservation.
Okay, thank you. Jason, Brock, you're up.
Yeah, I'm Brock Rachner. I work for Nutrient Ag Solutions. I manage 2 local branches in Jasper and Otwell. And I thought it would be good to join with these guys as a retail provider to farmers to pass on what I am learning from farmers and seeing what they will adjust to and incorporate that into the LSI, and just a group of people very focused on making the soil health and cover crop play really work.
Okay, and then finally, Alan, you round out the panel here. Tell us a little bit about yourself. You're muted, Alan.
Yes, Alan Smock, and I grew up on a family farm in just south of Indianapolis, about 30 miles. And I didn't, I guess I grew on the family farm. I learned a respect of the soil and of the land, and went off and made a living as an engineer. Came back, moved to Du Bois County, and as I got older, I thought it might be interesting to try to give back a little bit, to get back involved in farming, not directly here in the area, but through the Soil and Water Conservation District. 2012 had an opportunity to be on the board of the Soil and Water Conservation District, and put together the agreement with Vincennes University to utilize the property that is on the campus to improve the soil health, and to also then demonstrate that and provide that information to the local partners and so on. It's been a very interesting, for me personally, it's been a very interesting time, in that I've learned an awful lot about soil health, and hopefully we can leverage that information and help change some minds in the company, or in the county, regarding the adoption of soil health practices. I personally have really appreciated the help and assistance, guidance from all the partners that we have, the guys that are talking today. So that's been my involvement since about 2012.
And again, Alan, you serve in several committees as chair or the leaders for a lot of the projects we have out there too. So we're kind of thankful to have you in that slot. So going on, let's get into the serious discussions here while we're here today. As a group or individual here, why are you involved with the LSI project? I know a lot of you have very busy business schedules. You're running businesses, large farms all across the place here, but it takes time from your day to be involved with this kind of a project. So there has to be a reason for you to be involved. So why are you involved? What are your thoughts about the soil and water conservation and the soil health you're seeing out there? And how is it important to your business or to the maybe other farmers or other people you speak to in the community? So again, we'll just kind of go through alphabetically just so we know kind of what the order might be. And Rick, maybe you could start us off again.
Sure. So again, we're trying to lend our talents to the committee and help the cause. I'm a pretty strong believer in the conservation practices like no-till and cover crops, and I think they hold a lot of benefit for farmers. The potential for more profit, more resilient soils, less erosion. There's a whole host of benefits that doesn't really help us as a business, but helps our customers. And so I think that's an important cause.
Kind of comes out of customer service then.
Yep.
Okay. Let's see. Next is Dwayne. How do you see the importance of this, and what do you pass on to maybe your neighbors or other people you work with or talk to?
I've been involved with the SWCD for about 30 years, and I've always, earlier on, had a more active role going to lunch meetings and stuff with them, and got more involved with the farm operation here, and I had limited ability to do that, but this LSI kind of fit a need for me to augment what I do here at the farm. Learning about conservation from industry leaders, and quite frankly, these members that are on this committee, they're well in tune with the whole movement, and they're doing the right things and going to the right events, and we share thoughts among us, and been quite a learning experience. So that's the major portion why I'm involved here, and I'm also the farmer on the board here to kind of give the farmer perspective again, and I feel like that brings some value to it. At least I hope it does.
Okay. Jason, how do you work with it, or why do you work with it? And what do you maybe work with your clients when you're talking about things about soil health or things you might have learned here?
Okay, so I kind of want to echo what Dwayne said a little bit about the learning. You know, we all are kind of experts in our own little, in our realm of expertise, but I don't think any of us are experts in everything. So by kind of bringing different partnerships together, I think it makes the LSI much stronger. You know, there's been some different things that we've done with the cover cropping system and the soil sampling program throughout the past couple of years that has really lent some insights to different things, and we'll touch on that a little bit later. But it's definitely been a very good learning experience, I think, for everyone.
Okay. Brock, you're up next again.
Yeah, I mean, I grew up on a small farm like a lot of these guys that have some interest in one way or another, whether they grew up on a farm or it's their job. But grew up on mainly a no-till, but I was really interested in mainly the cover crop aspect and being able to push the envelope a little bit, just straight no-till, and can help soil conservation. But as far as nutrient cycling and building up your soil, I think cover crop is a big step, and there's a lot of unknown answers, and just diving in with these guys and trying to figure it out really made sense to me.
Okay. Alan, how about you?
Well, as I mentioned earlier, about 2012, things kind of worked out for me that I was able to spend some time, or had some time available to work with this project, and it came about. And I just thought that this is a really good opportunity to have some hands-on local involvement with improving soil health. And it's been really, you know, very valuable for me to work with the members of this committee and the other committees to do what we can to improve the soil health on the property, and then try to provide that visibility out to our constituent base of the Soil and Water Conservation District. So I came out, I grew up on a farm, and my dad's philosophy was, if you take care of the soil, it'll take care of you. And I think that really has come true on what we're seeing in the soil health movement. And we're seeing benefit of that out here on the property. After, I think this is our 9th year, we're starting to see some changes, and have seen some changes that it's gratifying, I think. So, and I really enjoy working with this group of men and Melissa and so on relative to this. It's something that we need to do as a country, I think, is to improve our soil health.
Okay, keep it going for the next generation then.
Yes.
Okay. So as a group or individually here, during your involvement with the Land Stewardship Initiative, what have you learned, and what practices have you adopted or passed on to your clients? I know a lot of you are not just only businessmen. You're also, a lot of times you're farmers on the side, or maybe the business is how you support your farming on the side, or however that joke goes sometimes. But what have you really learned, or as you've been involved with this project out there, and it's been different years for different people here on the committee as roles and positions change, but have you seen anything out there that's like an aha moment, or have you seen wonderful ideas come from it, or extreme flops that you know that, hey, that's something we should talk about so that other people in the community don't do that? Or maybe you pull it back to your business and say, here's something we tried out here. You know, we had to tweak that a bit, and eventually it did work, but don't go this route to get there. So again, what have you kind of seen out there? What have you taken back and used for yourself or for your clients or your own family farms, and just kind of, you know, why are we out there doing this, and what have you seen that we can pass on to today's audience? Again, Rick, we'll start off with you.
Yeah, so I farm a little bit as well, and we use no-till and cover crop, and so the concepts weren't new, but like the other guys have mentioned, it's nice being able to throw ideas back and forth and learn from each other. I guess the bottom line is Mother Nature always has the upper hand, and that's part of the reason we're doing the no-till and cover crops with all the torrential rainfalls that we've been getting the last several years. The decrease in erosion is really a big one, I think. Being able to increase the water holding capacity and the drainage rate through the soil. I think Jason's going to show some slides later about improving the organic matter, which helps the crops, obviously. I don't know. I'd say for guys that are getting into it, just be aware it's not easy. It is a long-term investment. You're not going to see changes right away, but I think in the end, it is profitable and better for the farmers and the environment also.
It's the right thing to do, but it's also a living system, and living systems are sometimes challenging, even if you don't have the weather involved in it. So,
Yep.
Okay. Next is Dwayne again. What are your aspects on this, Dwayne?
Well, some of the successes that I've personally saw out there at the LSI as we move forward with this, I think the resiliency of the soil is so much more improved over what we had when we first started this project.
And what do you mean by resiliency for the people listening in?
Just the characteristics that you can physically feel with the soil surface. Any operations that you do out there seem to go a lot more easily. The soil is more pliable and workable. When you run operations across it, tillage, or not tillage, but planting, as I'm the guy that does the planting, and I found that that's been much improved as we go forward through the years. It seems to be more spongy, it clods less, and it absorbs more rainfall too, I believe, as we've experienced through the years. And the cover crops, they keep the soil temps more stable to buffer the extreme temperature changes that we get, these wild weather swings that we got. And, it goes back to having good productive soils that ensure us as farmers the best possible chance of having good yields. The soil is the root of everything we do. And I believe that landowners that we work with on our farm have the same vision and want their farms handled in the best possible way. So that's kind of the stuff that, we need to carry out throughout the whole county, and the relationship between the landowners, the farmers, and, and how these farmers can be assisted to achieve these goals.
Okay. Jason, you're up next. I think you have a presentation to share today.
Yeah, so one thing I want to speak to first is I think we learned a lot about getting our cover crops off to a successful start. It doesn't matter whether we're planting corn, soybeans, or a cover crop. If we don't get a good stand and get that crop off to a good start, our chances of being successful are minimized greatly. So what I mean by that is when I first started with the LSI project 5 or 6 years ago, we were trying to get a lot of these cover crops seeded by aerial application. And whenever you do that, you've got about a 50-50 shot of either being a hero or a zero. I guess about 3 or 4 years ago, we started actually drilling these cover crops as you would a cereal crop, and we've had much better success with getting them established. And I think that's kind of linked to some of what Dwayne said about the soil tilth and some of that starting to change. The other thing that we started doing several years ago is we started to, I'll bring it up here. We started to intensively manage our soil sampling. And what I mean by that is we went to a 1 acre grid soil sample every year versus a 2.5 acre grid soil sample every 2 to 3 years. So what that's done for us is that's given us the ability to track this, our organic matter and our soil nutrients much better. So what you're looking at on this first graph here, I know it's kind of busy, but this is the organic matter, and each one of those colored lines is one of the fields, represent one of each of the fields at the LSI project. The thing to take note of here would be if you look at these trend lines, these are the dotted lines. So from 14 to 2020, you can see almost every field, our organic matter trend line is going in the right direction. So we're not making huge leaps and bounds as one might think, but we're definitely year over year, we're starting to move the needle. If you look at, I'm going to throw a few soil nutrients up here. If you look at our phosphorus levels, again, those phosphorus levels are going up. We get scrutinized sometimes because of water runoff and those types of things. But we've got to have enough phosphorus in the soil to at least grow the crop, but we're being responsible with that. Some of these cover crops are kind of sequestering some of those nutrients and then breaking back down throughout the season as the crop needs them. Kind of the same thing with our potassium levels. We're moving those in the right direction, but we're not being irresponsible with those numbers either. We're putting the right amount of fertilizer out there to grow the crop. So just kind of some neat information that we've been able to start tracking over the past couple of years. So be interested to see what the next 5 or 10 years bring.
So Jason, basically from some of your numbers you're pulling up there from the soil sampling, you're seeing the P and the K levels are going up. They're staying where they should be. So the nutrients aren't. So the farmer or whoever does some of these practices might be doing the environmentally right thing as well as the economically more sound thing by keeping some of those things trapped out there. If they've got a chance to increase the soil health, the soil tilth, things like that then.
That's correct. Yes. By putting the cover crop out there, one, we're able to help build the soil by being a little bit more intensive with our fertility management, and knowing that we're also holding those nutrients there and not letting them either hit the groundwater or down the ditch.
Okay. When you saw some of the rises and things, were those increases in the hilly areas, the lower areas? Were there trends for where you got more benefits or less benefits somewhere in the field?
I think overall, but being able to do the 1 acre grid soil sampling, we can manage. It's all about managing the acre, right? So we're managing a smaller area of the field. We're not treating the whole field the same. We're putting our fertilizer back variable rate, so where it needs it. We're trying to build the low areas and maybe not put as much fertilizer where those high nutrient areas already exist. And then we've also been putting some of the fertilizer back based off of a crop removal. So what I mean by that is you're not shorting the area that grew a really good crop, but you're not over fertilizing the area that didn't grow a big crop.
Okay. Put it where it needs to go then, basically.
That's right.
Okay. Anything else, Jason, before we move on to Brock?
I believe that's it.
Okay. Brock, what have you come away with from your involvement with the project that you can either use yourself, just learn for your own personal use as a business person, or maybe pass on to some of your clients?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing was not to be scared to promote these cover crops. I mean, coming in, I'll be honest, I was kind of skeptical of being able to manage them, and especially in the spring. So in the fall after the harvest, it was not too hard to get a cover crop established, but managing and more importantly, planting into it in the spring, I had a lot of guys that were kind of worried about that as far as really gaining on the cover crop acres. And that was the biggest holdback. And to be able to see that we can plant green and get these cover crops growing and get a bigger root mass in the soil, it really gave me the confidence to say, hey, we can do this. And it was baby steps at a time, killing it real small. A few years back, I wouldn't promote letting them grow very big. And really, we're doing this cover crop. We need to let them roots get as big as they can to get the most benefit out of them. And really taking steps to being able to plant into it and manage your cash crop and be profitable by doing that was just a confidence to be able to spread the word that, hey, we can do this. This is working. And I think it's a good thing. And now to be able to potentially get paid for capturing carbon, that's a big elephant in the room that, hey guys, we may actually be getting paid for doing this. It could be a really good thing.
So one of your bigger things then was basically in the cover crop area. It gave you a chance to see the demonstrations, to get the confidence to work with clients and of course, give more hands-on experience to them then by being involved in the project.
Yeah, oh yeah. I was skeptical at first because I was worried about getting the cover crop killed and having a good stand of corn and beans and not wanting to mess up that whole cash crop part of it just for a cover crop. And it's showing that we can do that out here. It just gave me the confidence to spread the word, and there's a lot of benefits to come through it.
Have you directed anybody out there to see some of the demonstrations or anything? Those people are kind of skeptical themselves, or that might want to see more about a cover crop or anything like that?
I can't say that I ever have.
Okay, just haven't had a chance yet or whatever. Okay.
Well, not personally one-on-one or anything like that. I haven't.
Okay. Anything else, Brock?
I don't think so. Not right now.
Okay. Alan.
Well, I think one of the things that really got me going at the outset of this thing was seeing a slate test and a slump test. And
and can you explain what that looks like or what that does?
Well, the slate test, basically you put a clod of soil into a glass, if you will, and suspend it and watch how fast or how slowly the soil breaks apart and falls to the bottom of that. And the slate test is a good way to compare healthy soils to soils that have been worked, tillage and so on. And I think I saw my first slate test done by Barry Fisher and Hans Koch in 2012. And it was just absolutely astounding to me to watch the disintegration of a clod of soil from a worked field versus a no-tilled environment. It was just astounding to me. I just had never thought of anything like that. And that certainly told me that there's really something going on here. My brother had been using no-till practices for many years, but it just never really clicked until I saw that. And so just kind of opened up a whole new point of view that I had relative to managing the soil using no-till and cover crops. So that was my big aha moment that you'd asked about earlier on, and that's what kind of got me really saying that there's really something here to this. And what I've been noticing on the LSI over the last several years is that we are making that transition from a soil that is really pretty friable. It's not resistant to erosion, and which is what we saw early on. I think Dwayne spoke to this also, that the soil is much spongier and it has definitely much more water holding capacity because we don't see the surface erosion that we had. We put in we certainly put in and revised some of we put waterways in and wascobs, but I think the main thing is the soil itself has more stability and so on. So that's that to me. And then the other thing is that the soil is a living, breathing entity. It's not chemistry, it's biology that makes the soil work. And we help the soil by putting in chemistry through nutrients and so on. But really we rely on the microbiome to convert that energy, if you will, from the fertilizer to something that's usable by the crop. So the more functioning the soil is, the more efficient it is at converting that, making it usable to the plant. The other thing that I've really noticed and caught on to as I've been involved with helping to manage the property and also working and knowing farmers is that going to a no-till cover crop system is really just like doubling your work and from a management point of view, it requires much more effort until you get used to it. With a conventional tillage, you have some opportunities to go out there and work with large equipment, and you can cover a lot of ground and make a very even seed bed. Well, if you use no-till techniques, you really need to wait till the soil is ready. And sometimes that can cost a day or so, but it really pays off because you can you're able to work with the soil in better condition. And so that's one thing that I've noticed is that making that transition from a single crop to raise basically two crops and then having to wait maybe a day or so to plant a crop versus go out and running a tillage tool over it and making it available sooner. those are interesting and big changes in management technique. The other thing that I've noticed is that it's hard to quantify this. I've been working with Rick and Dwayne and Jason and so on, and we've all tried to put dollars and cents to this change that we're all seeing on the property, and it's difficult. We're all looking for that silver bullet that we can provide to a grower, saying, yeah, if you do this, you're going to get this, and it's very tangible. Well, the benefits that we really see there are somewhat intangible. How can you quantify the benefit of having a spongy soil, as Dwayne noted? And one of the things that you benefit by that is that it's not as prone to compaction, because you have the soil structure there. It's spongy. If you get out there when it's a little bit damp, it's not gonna compact. If you do that on a tilled soil, you make tracks in your field, and they're long term. So I think that's the other thing that I've really noticed, that it is hard to quantify. We look at yields going back on the property, and they really haven't changed much. They're more consistent across the fields than they were. So we don't have really the bad areas, and we're seeing some improvement certainly, but it's not the big thing that you would hope to see. And maybe we'll continue, as we continue to do this, maybe we will begin to see some of those bigger changes over a longer period of time. And I hope so. But the intangible benefits are just, I think, very significant. The other thing, going back to planting green that Brock talked about, that to me was something that was kind of scary. And I think Dwayne and I both shared that concern a little bit up front. But one of the nice things about planting green is you have the opportunity of possibly eliminating a herbicide treatment. If the cover crops have good stand and are working well, they can eliminate that first burn down until after you have emergence. So it's kind of interesting there.
So Alan, since you've kind of you're very involved with a lot of the parts of the program, we talked about you mentioned the yield. Is there anything with the economics? Have you seen anything with some of the budgets you might have had there that there's, like you mentioned, maybe one less herbicide treatment or anything like that might be a benefit? Because we're not maybe always interested in highest record yields if it costs us an extra several times the money. So is there some savings there that the farmer economically comes out ahead, even though the yield might stay the same? Have you seen any of that?
Yes, we have seen it. It's hard to quantify because on our property, we have some donated, and we're paying different prices. So it's hard to kind of quantify that. But I guess we hear from all the participants with this that there seems to be some benefit, and probably the most tangible is the possibility of elimination of a herbicide pest, but also nutrient cycling. We believe is improved. Quantifying it is somewhat difficult.
Okay, you've got the gut feeling, but you just haven't quite gotten that on the board to prove it for sure yet. Then. Well,
but I think the other thing is we are confirming what we're reading from other places, and there are items out there in the literature that says, yes, that there are definite dollars and cents improvement. The VU property is it's a very varied property. I mean, we go from good to bad, from flat to hilly, and there's hardly a flat spot out there that we don't have enough space to do replicated trials because there's doesn't exist. But I think we're anecdotally seeing the benefits that other people are quantifying and to a degree. And we can say, yeah, we're seeing the same thing, but we just don't have the hard numbers that they might have.
Yeah. And again, this is a living system. If you were to talk to a university person like Purdue and ask, if I put on 1 unit of nitrogen on my corn, what will be the benefit? And that's been documented. But what you're working with the LSI project is every system, every field can be different, not just at that place, but all across the United States. And it's hard to get data when you have so many different living things operating within each of those individual fields, no matter where they're at. And that's one of the things that you're facing with the different committees is that it's a living system, and it's just hard to put firm numbers sometimes, because as soon as you figure everything out, weather comes in, something else might come in and make things more challenging again. But you keep trying it, and you know it's the right thing to do, though.
Yeah, we are. I don't think there's any doubt that we're sequestering some of the nutrients with our cover crops, but that's what we see in the literature. That's what's being, and so we believe it to be the case. But again, quantifying it has been the biggest roadblock that I think I've seen to trying to provide a solid, hard base for the producer to say, you need to do this. That it's more intangible than I would like for it to be.
Okay, but it's still a good classroom for folks to come out and see and visit different practices that are worth considering for our county, though.
Absolutely.
Yep. Okay. So the next question we have is, what advice do you all have to farmers who are considering making changes in their operation in the area of soil health? That might be cover crops, that might be tillage, it might be nutrients, it might be any number of things, might be grazing systems. I mean, soil health is different, again, from farm to farm as to what that person or farmer is looking at. So again, what might you have for advice for someone looking at making changes to their cropping system or their pasture or hay system or something like that? So Rick, we'll start off with you again.
Yeah, excuse me. The best piece of advice I would say is don't be afraid to reach out for help. Reach out to any of us that are on this committee, any neighbors that you have that have done it before. It's always better to learn from someone else's mistakes than to make your own and learn from them. So like the guys on here have said already, there's a lot of things we've learned as far as timing and the type of application of cover crops and getting them started and terminating the cover crops. There's a lot of challenges, but they can all be overcome. So don't be afraid to reach out for help.
Talk to the experts then. Okay. Dwayne, what advice do you have for other guys?
If I was talking to another producer or something, I'd probably recommend that they try things on a small scale, and then they kind of analyze where they're at and increase their acres as they become comfortable with the changes that they make. Don't jump in all the way and have just a complete failure financially that they can't bounce back from. It's just like everything else you do in production ag. You have to have a direction you want to go and kind of try different trails and figure out the one that works for you, because there's no set pattern that everyone is going to follow. An example would be like planting into your green cover crops that we've tried out there. I started that out here in our operation in a few fields and had some successes, had some failures, and kind of still trying to figure out what dictates, every year whether it's going to be a success or a failure. And honestly, I don't know. Just kind of do some of the things that kind of lend to increase probability of success and work that way. And I felt comfortable enough that I'm increasing my acres and have more confidence in the programs that I put forth. But that all starts on a small scale and build from there. And we recently started some grid soil sampling here at our farm, and that's kind of mimicked off of some of the things that they've done at the LSI, been part of, and seeing successes there in how you can tabulate, your nutrient loads and different application methods where you go back and put it in areas that are short and hold back a little bit on areas that have been producing in years, so you kind of get your stratification of nutrients spread out correctly for increased economic and production. So, it's just baby steps, again, is the big way. And it's not unlike anything else that you make as a producer, decision wise anyway, that, you just have to kind of verify that the direction you're going is correct and modify it all the time.
Okay, start small, make some tweaks while you're expanding on it, go from there, and then have a little bit better job at success then.
Yep.
Okay. Jason, how about you? What do you have for guys looking at going into new soil health type practices for their farm?
I think kind of like Dwayne said, the small steps. The other thing would be, be patient. If you think that you're going to completely change the way you do your operation and transition from a complete conventional tillage system to a no-till cover crop system, that takes time for that soil biology to change. That doesn't happen overnight. So don't expect huge drastic changes, you know, the first year, the first day, whatever. This is a long-term commitment, long-term project. So I think that's where a few guys kind of maybe fail is they will they'll make a change or do a few fields and make this change and they don't see the results that they want the first year. So they just revert back to the ways that they've always done things. So like I said, be patient, try things. That's the only way you learn.
Okay, thanks, Jason. Brock, what do you have for advice for guys trying to change their operations and looking to cover crops, tillage, nutrient cycling, things like that?
Yeah, I first echo everything that these guys have said, but and again, don't be scared to just go out and go for it, man. I mean, we know how to grow crops. It just takes a little bit different management. But if I had any advice, I'd say try it out on a field that's going to be in soybeans that next year. For some reason, it seems like it is easier to manage a cover crop that's going into soybeans, whether it's because we don't have to have that just perfect pick and fit stand to get the high soybean yields. They only kind of worry on that is the slugs, but I don't have a good answer for that one. If somebody does, let me know. But don't be scared. Go for it. Go into soybeans and let it rip. I mean, let's get them. I'm all for getting 4 or 5 feet tall, crimping them and planting into it. Now that's pretty big step than just covering the field with some wheat, but try to incorporate some manure. It seems like we can get some advances by incorporating manure in cover crops. So that would be my little bit of advice along with everything that these guys have said.
Okay. Alan, what wisdom do you want to share this morning?
Well, I can't, you know, everything that the guys have said, I absolutely agree with. And starting small in an area that you can play with and maybe in the back corner of a property, someplace where the neighbors aren't going to see, be the thing to do. Experiment. The other thing is there's a lot of literature out there to read, and the No-Till Farmer magazine, I think, is one of the best resources that are available to you. A lot of people there's a lot of information in that magazine. The No-Till Conference, which is held annually this next year down in Louisville, is a great opportunity to rub shoulders with people that have been doing this for a long time. So in addition to what the guys are saying, some additional things.
Okay, thanks, Alan. One thing I would say about that magic field you're doing your experiments on or whatever is I've seen some guys take the worst piece of ground they have, though, because it's in the back. And that's one thing I would recommend is maybe you take a nice field, maybe split it in half and do whatever you're doing now, but do the other half in whatever you're trying to get in your field, be it the cover crops, a new tillage system, whatever it might be, so that if that practice is something that'll work on your it's going to have a chance to show that it can do something to benefit you in some way. I've seen guys take the worst piece of dry ground or swampy ground in the back, and normal corn wouldn't grow there, much less a new practice they're trying to see if it would work on their operation or not. So kind of expand on that small piece of ground, do it in small baby steps, and then do the right place then, and then see if it works out or not. And again, push the pencil to it. Make sure you can do some economics on it or yield checks on it or something like that. So with that, do anybody have here, any of the panelists, do you have any more comments you want to add before we go into questions? If not, we'll start off with the chat here and see what we might have. First off, Eric Hess asks, I think it's kind of towards Jason, looking at the charts, I think it is fairly consistent across the fields to see a drop in organic matter from 2018 to 2019. Even though the trend for the 6 years was up. Any thoughts on what might have caused that drop in organic matter?
So yeah, we'll talk to that a little bit. So sometimes you see some anomalies with soil sampling. We try to pull these samples in the same spot every year. But you have to remember, whenever you're taking a soil sample, that is such a very, very small representation of the overall soil amount out there. That's one thing we've probably learned by doing this is being intensive with these soil samples. You can learn a little bit better or catch some of those type of things versus if you do this every 3 years and you do have one of those anomaly type years, you know, you're basing your next 2 to 3 year plans off of that. So, you know, that's the thing, soil sampling, everybody thinks it's black and white. It's not. There is a little bit of a gray area to it, but it's a heck of a lot better than a guess, right? So bringing those zones into a little bit smaller area, being able to manage that a little bit more. You know, you can go too small, but you know, there's a happy medium between the information that you get back and economics on it too. So you have to keep that in mind. So hopefully that answered your question. We're going to monitor it again in the next year or two. I think that was just, I mean, we kind of saw it across several of the fields, that spike that year. So and it could have been a breakdown of residue. Maybe there was more biology going on that year and kind of something to that. We would have to go back and look and see what cover crop was put on. There may have been a little bit more biomass out there that year just because of that also.
Okay, thanks for the update on that, Jason. Mike Smith with the Conservation Technology Information Center was asking, he was just curious if you've seen any benefits from the controlled drainage system that's featured out there at the LSI plots. Alan or anybody, would you have any ideas on the drainage system you have there?
Listen, I think you've got the data on that, if I'm not mistaken, that the nitrogen is retained in the field. We have a stopgate system in field 1, in which we over the winter months we stop that from draining out through the tile drainage, and then we open it up in the summertime. And there's been a lot of work done in various areas that indicates that holds the nitrogen back. I think, Mike, when you were involved, you saw that we were able to maintain some of that. I don't have any, I haven't seen the recent data on that, but there's no reason to think that that isn't still working as it was laid out.
Okay. Melissa put in here also, for those of you who missed last week, some of the demonstrations we did, the slag test that was mentioned earlier, it was in there, and the video is on the, again, on the Du Bois County SWC YouTube channel. So you can see some of those things there. So are there any other questions out there? If you've got any, go ahead and put those in the chat box. We'll try to get to them right away here. We're coming up in about 10 minutes on our end of our sessions here, but we've got plenty of time to ask some more questions yet if you have some more interest picked. Or any of the panelists, if you have any information you'd like to share, kind of hearing some of the other panelists talk about things that you think needs to be thrown out there and discussed for the group today. Crickets, huh?
I'll ask a question. Has anybody heard any information on like the payment for carbon credits? Does anybody know anybody that signed up that's getting payments, or what have you guys heard on that front? I know Bear's in it, we're dabbling in it, but just didn't know if anybody knew anybody that was signed up that was actually getting paid for it or how it was going to work.
I've not heard anything on it yet. I've heard, again, the rumors and discussions, and they've been going on for many years, but I haven't heard anything recently on updates or programs, or if the new administration in Washington is looking at maybe putting some money behind some of that and some of the programs they have. So I haven't heard anything.
I'll speak to that just a minute. I'm no expert in it. It's kind of a gray area right now, but the little bit of information that I do have is it seems to be that they are rewarding the producer that is implementing new practices. And what I mean by that is if you're conventional till and you switch to no-till, you're going to be paid probably more or qualify more, I guess, if you will, than the person that has been no-till cover crop for multiple years already. So we'll have to kind of watch this a little bit. It's a moving target as we go here, but I think the rules and some of the things are gonna kind of work themselves out here in the next year or so.
That's my understanding. Yeah, that's my understanding also, that basically you would get paid on the practices that you would adopt and from whenever you adopted that practice is when you would get paid. And so if you've already are practicing high level of soil health practices on your property, it doesn't look like you can get much payment for that. You've already done it. So you're already sequestering the carbon. So
It's more for increasing the adoption of certain practices out there then.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that there's, and this could be not true, but I know I read somewhere that you can also get paid on like the amount of carbon that you are sequestering based field by from NDVI or satellite imagery. So I think somebody that's been no-tilling may actually have an upper hand, and every single company's how they're paying is probably going to be a little bit different. But I don't know. It is interesting that we're at least talking about it and maybe a potential revenue stream for incorporating some of these practices.
Well, it definitely help with some of the offset for the cost for like cover crops or things like that from the seed standpoint. So I mean, it'd be very much appreciated. Plus, it's just another revenue stream for the farmer out there. So.
Yeah, I want to say one more thing, back up Alan on as far as quantifying, and I don't like doing this saying you're going to get 5 bushel if you do this or that. See if you can see this. Can you see? Oh, you can't see it very good. Anyways, this come out of Hopkinsville Research Farm from Nutrien, and they were doing intense cover crop and crimping it and planting into it. Started 3 years ago, and this is replicated trials. We can't really do it at VUJC, but this is set up for a research farm, and they're comparing no-till to no-till with the intense cover crop. And on corn, there was a 7 bushel yield gain with the cover crop, and on soybeans, there was a 6 bushel advantage. So there are places that are quantifying a yield increase by incorporating these intense cover crops. Just to back Alan up a little bit. It is hard to quantify though.
But again, that's maybe where you go out and you try something in a corner of your field someplace, do just a simple split thing with product, how you're doing it now on one side, how you're doing something different, be it a cover crop or something else, and see how it works on your field. Because that's what it comes down to is not all things work in all places, and you got to figure out how to make it work in your place. And again, just that's something we've encouraged for years, is just doing a little simple experiments here and there for yield trials and nutrient trials and manure trials and everything else, just to see how it works or doesn't work on your particular farm. So you got to know which direction to look in, though. That's the main thing to begin with. Any other comments? Okay, it's a little bit early today, but Melissa, is it okay to go ahead and wrap things up then, I guess?
Yes.
What I would like to say before we close here is please do join us next week to hear from our 3 local farmers. It's going to be Jack Welp, Dwayne Hof, and Alex Hole, as they kind of share their combined decades of experience with cover crops, grazing systems, and related soil health issues. Again, thanks for attending today, and we look forward to seeing you next week. And if you do want to see this or any of the other things, I'm assuming, Melissa, all these are going to be put on the YouTube channel for the SWCD. So if you did miss it, or you have somebody in the family interested in it, or a client, you can direct them there to maybe hear some of the discussions or like some of the demonstrations we had last week with some of the slate tests and other things that this group's doing. So again, thank you all for attending, and we look forward to maybe seeing you next week.